In the realm of horror, the first in a franchise is often considered the best. This holds true for Halloween, Scream, Saw, Candyman, and numerous other franchises. This is also typically ascribed to the Nightmare on Elm Street series, with the 1984 original having the best critical reception and the most cultural relevance. However, Wes Craven was involved with more than just the first, and he would develop the story and write the first draft of the third entry, Dream Warriors. Wes's original script was darker, and was revised a number of times, but the heart of it still stands true, and for that, and many other reasons, Nightmare 3 is the pinnacle of the franchise. It stands above the original in several aspects, notably the dream sequences, characters and acting, and most importantly, the ending. Nightmare 1 still has the edge in some areas, however, being the most frightening film in the franchise and with some of the best individual moments. The basic premise of the franchise is that Freddy Krueger can inhabit the dreams of sleeping children and make them live out deadly nightmares. In the original film, this mostly took the form of completely normal environments. A house, a school, a boiler room, and then Freddy would appear and do something scary, slicing off parts of himself, or slicing with his iconic finger knives. In Nightmare 3, however, they opt for much more interesting environments, setups, and visuals. The Elm Street house becomes a long-abandoned carnival ride, with a hall of mirrors, moving floor, and a disgusting Freddy worm penis. The characters are given ironic or fitting deaths. Philip, who makes marionettes, has his tendons ripped out, and Freddy acts like a puppeteer to his apparent suicide. Although there's some questionable Freddy magic as he causes the sleepwalking person to travel through a locked door, but his abilities have never made much sense. One of the most iconic kills, and lies in the franchise, is Jennifer's death. She wants to be a famous actress, and drifts off while watching TV. One of the basic issues with the franchise is that if a character's awake, they're safe. If they're dreaming, it's extremely obvious, and that's when something bad happens. There's a few times in the franchise that toy with this, and it causes the shock horror that can be difficult to achieve when Freddy suddenly takes over a TV host, and then emerges out of the box, and well. In terms of characters, Nightmare 1 is pretty stock standard. The virginal final girl, suspicious bad boy, best friend, and boyfriend. There are few enough character traits between them, and as the film was the first role for a number of actors, including Langenkamp and Depp, some of the acting is less than stellar. Nightmare 3 ups the ante with a colorful cast of patients at a psychiatric hospital, as well as the reintroduction of Nancy and her father, adding continuity that was fairly lacking from Nightmare 2. A brief note on the second film. Freddy's powers are so different, as are the tone and structure, that may as well be a different demon, and is more of a side story than a proper continuation. While the characters in Nightmare 3 aren't hugely deep, they each have a couple of character traits, and their unique troubled pasts come up again in both in Freddy's dreams, as well as the group therapy sessions. Overall, everyone feels more rounded, including Nancy, who's grown up from a high schooler into an intern therapist. Despite only 3 years passing between the release of the original film and this one, 7 years have passed in the film's universe. Langenkamp's acting has also improved significantly. Although some lines are still come across as corny, there's at least solid intent behind them, rather than just a teenager reading lines. And unfortunately, a high percentage of horror films fall apart in the third act. What is supposed to be the dramatic conclusion becomes a little more than dull action sequences, or extended chase scenes without purpose. The biggest problem that occurs is the need to show the villain for the entirety of the finale, resulting in a dulling of the horror. Nothing is scarier. A tall guy in a mask getting stabbed a few times just doesn't compare. Nightmare 1 falls into this trap, especially with the studio tacked on stinger. Nancy's Home Alone plan works fine enough, but once she gets into the bedroom and Freddy rides her mom into a magical bed dimension and is defeated by Tinkerbell's weakness, well, it's a bit of a mess. Then it turns out everything was a dream. Or was it? Coupled with the single most obvious mannequin that has ever existed, and a great movie ends with a whimper. Nightmare 3 has an incredibly solid ending, with 2 separate pieces of action that come together well thematically. Freddy is facing off with Kirsten and her friends in the dream world, and Dr. Gordon is exploring an abandoned car yard with Nancy's dad, trying to find Freddy's bones and consecrate them. Both parts have been built up throughout the film, with a ghost nun slowly revealing Freddy's backstory, and the way to kill him. The stop-motion skeleton is a bit but otherwise there's a good amount of tension, and it's a natural conclusion to the film, and even the franchise. Nancy, her dad, and Freddy all end up dead, a fitting conclusion for everyone involved. That makes the trilogy of 1, 3, and New Nightmare serve as a complete story, and given they were all Wes's projects, it makes sense. Despite all the things that 3 does better, however, it never manages quite the same scares as the original. The initial appearance of Freddy, Tina's gravity-wrenching death, and especially the walking body bag are all incredibly effective images that stick with you. While 3 may be more fun, and Freddy may be more creative, the simple things are often the best, and a pool of blood leading down some stairs is more fearsome than a dozen high-budget monsters. Also, that's like a lot of blood, likely the most on screen at once until Evil Dead 2. The horror all fades away in the final act, however, and that's where the real takeaway is. In Dream Warriors, the characters are more interesting, and as an audience, you become more invested in them, combined with an intense and built-up final act, and the feeling after the film is not disappointment or small things to pick apart, but satisfaction. Nightmare 3 is such a fun, entertaining, and well-made film, and is definitely the best of the franchise. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment, and be well.